My name is Isabella. I am 31 years old. I live in Ohio with my husband, Mark, but my neighbor looks at him like he belongs to her. We moved into this house 3 years ago. It was our first home, a cozy 2-bedroom place with a small backyard and white walls we planned to paint. I was so happy then. Mark and I had just celebrated our 2nd wedding anniversary. Everything felt fresh, full of love and plans for the future. He worked in a nearby office, and I worked part-time at the local school. We were not rich, but we were comfortable. We were building a life together. Ashley, our next-door neighbor, came over the very first evening we moved in. She brought a plate of homemade cookies and introduced herself with a big smile. "Welcome to the neighborhood," she said. She looked perfect. Too perfect. Long hair, red lips, a tight dress, and a sweet voice that sounded rehearsed. Mark smiled and thanked her. I thanked her too, though something about her made me feel uneasy even then. She looked at Mark a little too long. At first, she acted like a friendly neighbor. She came by to borrow small things, some salt, a candle, even a charger once. I thought it was normal. We were new, and maybe she just wanted to be helpful or make friends. But I noticed something quickly. She always came when Mark was home, never when I was alone. And when she talked, she looked only at him. She almost acted like I wasn't there. One Saturday morning, Mark and I were drinking coffee on the porch when Ashley came walking over with her phone. "Hey," she said, "my Wi-Fi is acting up. Mind if I use yours for a little while?" Mark stood up. "Sure. Come in." She walked right past me with a big smile, like she owned the place. She stayed for more than an hour. They sat on the sofa talking about movies and TV shows. I made tea for them, but she didn't even say thank you. She just laughed at every joke Mark made. I sat nearby, feeling like an outsider in my own home. After she left, I said, "She's here a lot." Mark looked confused. "She's just being nice." I looked at him. "She's not being nice. She flirts with you. Right in front of me." He laughed. "Isabella, come on. Don't be silly." I didn't answer. I didn't feel like laughing. Something was changing, and I felt it deep in my chest. Over the next few weeks, it kept happening. If Mark was outside watering the plants or fixing something, Ashley would suddenly appear. She'd lean over the fence, complimenting him, asking him questions about things I knew she didn't really care about. Once, when he was fixing the mailbox, she said, "You're really handy. I wish I had someone like you." I was standing right there. Mark didn't respond. He just smiled politely, but I saw something in his eyes. He liked the attention. That night I told him, "She wants you, Mark. She doesn't even try to hide it anymore." He rolled his eyes. "She's just lonely, Bella. She lives alone. Maybe she just needs someone to talk to." "Then she can talk to me," I said. "But she doesn't. She only talks to you." He didn't say anything. One day, I came home early from work. I was supposed to stay late for a meeting, but it got canceled. I unlocked the door quietly and stepped inside. I heard voices, Ashley's voice, and then Mark laughing. I walked toward the kitchen. There they were, sitting at the table, drinking coffee. She was wearing a tight sweater, and her hand was resting on the table just a few inches from his. They looked up at me. "Oh, Isabella," Ashley said, standing quickly. "I just came to return your baking dish." It was the same dish I had given her 2 months ago. She left quickly after that. Mark didn't look at me. I didn't say anything right away, but that evening as we were washing dishes, I asked, "Why was she here?" He didn't answer at first. Then he said, "She just stopped by for a minute." "To sit and drink coffee in our kitchen?" I asked. "Come on, Mark," he finally said. "I'll talk to her less. If it makes you uncomfortable, I'll keep my distance." I wanted to believe him. I really did. But 2 mornings later, I looked out our bedroom window and saw Mark walking toward Ashley's house. He rang the doorbell. She opened the door with a big smile, like she had been waiting for him. Then he stepped inside. He didn't come back for nearly an hour. That night, I confronted him. "I saw you at her door." He looked tired. "She needed help with something under her sink." "She couldn't call a plumber?" I asked. "She asked me. I was being polite," he replied. I didn't argue. I just nodded, but I felt something inside me close, like a door locking from the inside. That same week, something even stranger happened. It was almost midnight. I got up to get some water and passed by the front window. I saw someone standing outside, completely still. I moved the curtain slightly and saw it was Ashley. She was standing near the tree in our front yard, looking up at our bedroom window. She didn't move. She didn't have a phone or a dog or anything. She just stood there, watching. After about 2 minutes, she turned and walked away. The next day, I went to her house and rang the bell. She opened it with her usual wide smile. "Hi, Isabella," she said cheerfully. "I saw you outside last night," I said, looking her in the eye. Her smile faded a little. "Oh, I couldn't sleep. I went out for some air." "Right under our window?" I asked. She laughed softly. "It's a nice spot. I like the stars." I didn't respond. I just said, "Okay, just checking," and walked away. That evening, I told Mark everything about the staring, about the way she watched him, about how I didn't feel safe in my own home anymore. He listened quietly. Then he said, "You're right. I'll stop talking to her." But the next morning, I looked out the window again. He was standing at her door. She opened it with a smile, and he walked in. I stood at the window, holding the curtain just slightly open, watching my husband walk into Ashley's house. He didn't knock and wait politely. He rang the bell like it was his second home. When she opened the door, she didn't act surprised. She smiled like she had been expecting him. My hands felt cold. My face was warm. I let the curtain fall back and turned away. I didn't want to cry, but the tears came anyway. I didn't know what hurt more, that Mark was lying to me, or that I had seen it coming and hoped I was wrong. When he came home, I acted normal. I was setting the table for dinner. He walked in, took off his shoes, and washed his hands like nothing had happened. "Smells good," he said, sitting down. "Where were you?" I asked calmly. "She needed help with a light in the laundry room," he said. "You were gone for an hour," I said. He shrugged. "It took a while." I didn't argue. I just nodded and served his food. But that night, I couldn't sleep. I lay in bed with my eyes open, listening to the sound of Mark breathing next to me. My chest felt heavy, like something was pressing down on it. I kept thinking of her smile, the way she looked at him, the way he smiled back. Something had changed. He used to look at me like that. Now it was her. The next morning, I went to work but couldn't focus. At lunch, I sat with my friend Julia, who worked at the same school. "You look tired," she said. "I haven't been sleeping well," I answered. She took a sip of her coffee and looked at me closely. "Is everything okay at home?" I thought about lying, but the words just came out. "My neighbor is in love with my husband." Julia blinked. "What?" "She visits all the time. She watches him. She flirts with him in front of me. I've asked him to stop seeing her, but he keeps going back." Julia reached across the table and held my hand. "Have you talked to him about how you feel?" "Yes," I said. "He says I'm imagining things, that she's just being friendly. But I'm not imagining it, Julia. I see the way she looks at him. I see the way he doesn't stop her." She squeezed my hand. "You need to talk to him again. Really talk. And if he doesn't listen, you have to decide what you can live with." That evening, I waited until after dinner. Mark was on the sofa, looking at something on his phone. "I want to talk," I said. He looked up. "Okay." I sat down across from him. "I don't feel safe in this marriage anymore." His face changed. "What do you mean?" "I don't feel like I'm your wife. I feel like I'm just the woman who lives with you, while you give your attention to someone else." "Isabella, you're being dramatic," he said. "I'm being honest," I replied. "You said you would keep your distance from Ashley, but the next day you went to her house. I saw you. She needed help." "No," I said, cutting him off. "This isn't about helping anymore. This is about what you're choosing. You're choosing her." He sat back and crossed his arms. "I'm not cheating on you, if that's what you're saying." "You're emotionally somewhere else," I said. "That's worse sometimes." There was a long silence. He looked away. I watched him carefully. His face didn't show guilt, but it didn't show love either. Finally, he said, "I don't know what you want me to do. I want you to stop going to her house. I want you to stop inviting her into ours. I want you to respect me enough to set boundaries. He rubbed his face and stood up. Fine. I'll talk to her. I wanted to believe him. Again. But deep down, I was tired of wanting to believe someone who kept showing me the truth. 3 days passed. Ashley didn't come by. Mark stayed home after work. He didn't mention her. I started to feel a small bit of peace return. I let myself hope. Then one afternoon, I walked into the grocery store and saw them together. Mark and Ashley were in the produce section. She was laughing. He was smiling. He touched her arm gently as she said something. They didn't see me. I turned quickly and left the store. I sat in the car for 10 minutes, trying not to scream. That night, I didn't cook dinner. I sat at the table, waiting. When Mark came in, he looked surprised. No food tonight? I looked at him. I saw you with her today. He froze. What? At the store. You said you weren't seeing her anymore. He looked away. She asked to meet. To talk. You're still lying, I said quietly. I just wanted to explain things to her. Set the boundary. Is that what you were doing when you touched her arm? He opened his mouth but didn't speak. I stood up. I'm done asking, Mark. You've made your choice. I went to the bedroom and closed the door. That night, I cried harder than I had in years. I didn't know what to do. I loved him, but I couldn't share him. Not with her. Not with anyone. The next morning, I packed a small bag. I left him a note. I'm going to my sister's for a few days. I need space. I didn't know what would happen next, but I knew I couldn't stay in a house where I felt invisible. I couldn't sleep in a bed with a man whose heart had drifted away. As I drove away, I looked in the rearview mirror at the little house in Ohio we had built together. It looked the same on the outside, but inside, everything had changed. I stayed with my sister Elena for 5 days. Her home was smaller than ours, with loud kids and messy shelves, but I felt safe there. She didn't ask too many questions at first. She just made tea and gave me space to cry. I needed that. On the 3rd night, I told her everything. I told her about Ashley, how she watched Mark like he was already hers, how Mark lied to me, promised me one thing, and did another, how I kept holding on, hoping he'd return to the man I married, but watching him slip further away. Elena didn't say much. She just listened. When I finished, she touched my hand gently and said, "You didn't leave too early, Isabella. You waited too long." Her words stayed in my mind. The next day, Mark called. I didn't pick up the first time, or the second. But on the 3rd try, I answered. "Are you okay?" he asked. "I'm safe," Imai said. "I needed space." "I didn't mean to hurt you," he said. "I was just trying to help her. I didn't think it was so serious." "You kept going back after I asked you to stop," I said. "You hid things from me. You made me feel like I was going crazy for noticing." He was silent for a moment. Then he said, "I miss you." "I miss who you used to be," I replied. We didn't talk long. I told him I would come back in a few days, but not for him. I needed to collect my things and think. When I returned to our house, the air felt different. The curtains were closed. The kitchen was quiet. Mark was waiting in the living room. He looked tired, like he hadn't shaved or slept well. I walked in and placed my bag on the floor. He stood up. "Thank you for coming back. I came to see what's left," I said. We sat down, far apart. I looked around the room where Ashley once sat, laughing too loudly at Mark's jokes. I remembered the smell of her perfume, the way she never looked at me, only him. Mark spoke first. "I haven't seen her since you left. I told her I made a mistake, that I crossed a line." I didn't answer. He went on. "I didn't cheat, but I let her get close. Too close. I liked the attention. I won't lie about that." I looked at him. "Why wasn't I enough?" He looked down. I was just stupid. I thought I could handle it, that it meant nothing, but it meant something to you. And I broke your trust." I didn't cry. I had cried enough already. Instead, I said, "I don't know if I can stay married to someone who made me feel small in my own home." "I want to fix it," he said. "I'll do anything. Counseling, space, rules, anything you ask." For a moment, I believed him. Maybe he was sincere. Maybe he finally understood. But then I remembered how many times I had asked already, how many chances I gave, how many mornings I stood at the window watching him walk away. "I don't need space," I said quietly. "I need peace." Mark's face fell. "So that's it?" "I don't want to live with suspicion. I don't want to check windows or phones or pretend everything is fine when it's not." He leaned forward. "I'll do better." I shook my head. "You had the chance to do better when I was begging you to. I needed you then." There was nothing left to say. I stood up, walked to the bedroom, and began packing the rest of my things. Mark didn't stop me. Before I left, I walked around the house once more. I touched the kitchen counter where we used to cook dinner together. I looked at the sofa where we watched movies under blankets. I paused at the bedroom door where I once believed our future was safe. I took one last look at Mark. He was still on the couch, staring at the floor. "Goodbye, Mark," I said softly. He didn't lift his head. That night, I went back to Elena's house. Her youngest daughter hugged me as I came in. Elena made soup, and we watched an old movie on TV. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. In the weeks that followed, I started rebuilding. I applied for full-time jobs. I joined a book club. I went for walks in the evening and started journaling every morning. Some nights were still hard. I would lie awake and wonder if I had done the right thing, but most mornings I woke up without that heavy weight in my chest. That was new. That was freedom. Ashley moved away 2 months later. I heard it from a friend in the neighborhood. No one missed her. Mark sent me one letter, a long one. He said he still thought of me every day, that he was going to therapy, that he was sorry, not just for what he did, but for what he lost. I read it once, then folded it and put it in a drawer. I didn't respond. Sometimes love is not loud. Sometimes love is quiet respect. And when that disappears, love turns into something else, something you don't even recognize anymore. I never thought I'd be the kind of woman who walked away from her marriage. But now I know leaving isn't weakness. It's strength, real strength. The kind that says, I deserve more than this.